everybody, what is going on? It is Josh Thomas here from TheBitBlock. Welcome to another discussion video. This one I'm pretty excited about because I haven't talked to this boy in forever. I am joined by the one and only Mr. RogersBase.
This boy, not this young man, this boy.
This old man RogersBase.
This boy RogersBase, yeah. This was actually a really good E3, surprisingly. I know a lot of people going into this E3 thought, oh, they're only showing off Zelda, it's not going to be that good. But speaking as somebody who likes all the systems, who doesn't just like Nintendo, who also likes Sony and all the other consoles, I really liked this E3. I think this was a great E3 in terms of good, long game demos, interesting new game announcements, and lots of really good swag. This is probably the best year in recent memory in terms of free stuff at the show. I came out of it with a Zelda t-shirt, a Zelda coin, a Tekken hat, a Persona hat, 2 big, giant, oversized laundry bags from Square Enix and from Atlas. I had a Persona bag and a Final Fantasy bag. I got a signed poster from Charles Martinet that says, hello, Super Roger. And then I also got a signed poster from Ono-san, who's the guy who created Street Fighter. And it has his name and everything written on it. It says, sure you can. So yeah, it was a really great year in terms of swag. And overall, the games this year were fun as well. So yeah, I'm excited to start talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long this is going to go. I'm going to guess that we're going to break this into 2 parts, but it'll be exciting. You know, I haven't talked to you in a long time. This is just 2 buddies hanging out and recapping what went on.
Hanging out, talking E3, drinking some tea, because my voice is still a little bit shot, so apologies if I can't talk super long, but...
You got sick from all those people you were making out with at E3.
No, it was because of the E3 plague. I mean, this happens pretty much every major convention if you're not ready for it. And I did kind of push myself in terms of doing live reactions and videos that first day. Plus, I went to the Twitch after party, and then I woke up really early on Wednesday because we wanted to get to the show floor early so we can get in line to play Zelda. Because, fun fact, not even Nintendo employees could get the shirt or the coin. You had to have a ticket and wait in line. So even though we had media booth appointments, we had to wait in line to get the shirts and the coins. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Here's a question for you. Compared to last year, what were the lines like to play the demo for Zelda?
So, the line to play Star Fox last year was, 3 hours to get the R-Wing pin?
Yeah, that was pretty long,
Okay,
I thought.
so the line to play Zelda, to put this into perspective, closed literally 6 minutes into the show floor, which means that people bum rush to go play Zelda, and if you weren't in line within the first 6 minutes of the show floor opening, you were not gonna play Zelda.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so the lines were crazy, crazy long, and basically how this worked is you would get in line, and then you would get a ticket. And that ticket would basically confirm your entry into the booth, because the booth was completely closed off this year. It wasn't like you could just walk through Nintendo's booth like normal. It was completely closed off, and then you basically had to walk through this little shrine area. You had to go in like groups of 10, and then you would go in to the actual booth and then play the demo. And then once you were actually in the booth, you could take as much time as you wanted to like take pictures of all the cool Zelda stuff, like the Bokoblins and the little cooking area and Link shooting at the Guardian. And there was also like this cool little prom backdrop looking thing where it was like I don't know how best else to describe it. It was like this weird stone looking like backdrop that was taking place in the back of the Temple of Time. There was like a treasure chest you could open. It was a really interactive, really cool booth. The walls had this awesome like computer generated sunset on them, and the night and day would shift, and then it would like thunderstorm in the middle of the booth. It was awesome.
That's not, yeah, I also noticed there's the little cooking thing where the food actually like bubbled up and down.
Yeah, I cooked in it. I put a little video of that in my vlog. So
So yeah, it looked pretty cool. It's like it's a little preview of Nintendo at Universal Studios.
That's what a lot of people were saying, actually. There were a number of people when I was there who I was talking to saying, man, I wonder if this stuff is just going to get thrown out after E3. And they were like, well, you never know. There's theme parks coming up. So I don't think the stuff is going to get thrown out anytime soon.
I'm guessing they'll reuse that stuff for like the launch of the game at Nintendo World Store or whatever they call it. Yeah. So let's, really quickly before I forget, this is something I want to ask you earlier. Where was the Treehouse Live stuff being filmed?
So the Treehouse Live stuff was actually right outside of the closed off booth, right on the show floor. So if you walked by Nintendo's booth, you would just see this giant like white enclosed booth with Link on one side, and then like a little shrine that would get you into it that was shaped like a guardian and a Sheikah slate. And then there was like a little outside of the booth, there was like a little amiibo display that showed off the new Mario amiibos, Zelda amiibos, and then there was also the stage, the Treehouse Live stage, where basically even if you weren't inside the booth, you could watch Treehouse Live the whole week. And there was like a little seating area, but it looked like the seating area was exclusive to either like media or people who were going up on stage. It wasn't like how it was last year, where it was like open and we could sit with Iguchi-san and stuff like that.
Was it the same location as last year?
Yeah, it was the same location booth-wise, and they took up just as much space, but just it was all Zelda this year. Zelda, and it was a giant enclosed booth, and then we had Treehouse Live on the outside. So yeah.
Well, let's talk. Let's actually talk about the game, Roger. You played it. Let's hear like what are your just explode about Zelda. What do you want to say about it?
Played a good hour of the game, and I love it. I honestly feel like, and I'm not like trying to build this up and make it crazy, and I'm going to do a full discussion on my own channel as well about this, but I honestly feel like this is going to revitalize the Zelda franchise. I think there are a lot of people out there who maybe got a little sick of the Zelda franchise after Skyward Sword, thought it was a little bit linear, thought there was too much reusing of certain locations, and this is absolutely not the case. This game is a giant open world game. There are like little shrine mini dungeons everywhere. The enemies are really interesting. Like there's just the regular bokoblins that you beat up and then you can steal their weapons. You have bosses that just like randomly show up on the field. So like you'll be walking by this one area, for example, you're picking a mushroom, and then all of a sudden the rock that the mushroom was next to will like climb out of the ground to become this giant rock boss similar to Thartus from Metroid Prime. You've got the Guardians. That was in the demo, yeah.
Oh, cool.
And the only way to kill it was using like a stonecutter axe. Otherwise, it was like far too powerful. If you just used the basic sword, the sword would break. Or if you use like bomb arrows on it, you could do damage with it that way too. And by the way, there were tons of weapons you could pick up in this demo. There was the stonecutter axe, the traveler's sword, the Hyrulean sword. There was a pitchfork type thing, like a farmer's pitchfork. There were the bokoblin arms, which are basically like these little Stalfos arms that you could smack.
Yeah, those are amazing. That's gonna be. I want to defeat Ganon with that arm.
Well, you can. They said you could run right to Ganon from the beginning of the game in the actual game. Obviously, it would be a challenge, but they want to allow the player to do that, and I think that is just so cool. And there's other stuff as well. It's not just like Boko clubs and Bokoblin arms and different types of swords and stuff. There were like 3 different types of arrows just in the demo I played alone. There were fire arrows, bomb arrows, and regular arrows. The fire rod made a comeback from like the old Zelda games, and it creates this giant like crazy ball of fire that kills everything. I'm trying to think of some of the other weapons that were in the game. I mean, there were a ton of them. There was a Korok leaf, which you could use to like sort of steer a sailboat that was going down the river. It was incredible. I mean, weapon variety wise, this is amazing. And if this is just the demo, I can't even imagine what the regular game is going to be like. And I didn't even bring up like the magnet thing. I think it's called Magnesits, where you could like pick up steel items and like chuck them at people or solve puzzles with it. It was awesome, man. I really loved the weapon variety.
Mm-hmm. How are the important items introduced to you? Does it feel like they're really casually introduced, or does it feel like it's kind of like a little bit of an important moment when you open up the chest and get it? Or do you get them from a chest?
So you get the clothes from the chest when you wake up for the first time, and you get the Sheikah slate from a chest as well, but you don't get, I think actually, no, you do get a sword in like a special way, because you first meet the old man from the old games, then he tells you about the Temple of Time, and then you walk over and there's this little like shrine area with the sword sticking out. But really, you don't even need to go there. You could just steal a club from a bokoblin and just start attacking people. I'm pretty sure you can go through the whole game without even having a sword. You could just use like Stalfos arms and arrows and stuff. But the other items, like the key items, the regular key items like arrows and bow and arrows and stuff like that, you pick up from enemies. So those weren't things that I got from treasure chests. Those were things that I got from enemies.
That's interesting. I'm really curious how that's going to feel in like the final game, because I mean, traditionally in Zelda games, when you get a new item, a new weapon, it's a big momentous event, you know? It's like you usually get it after like defeating a boss or something like that. So it's really going to be definitely different to just like have these items that are important and just kind of get them in these very unusual different ways.
I think I kind of like it better this way, to be honest. I feel like getting the variety and not having to go through the like every single time It's great. You don't have to go through those cutscenes. You pick something up. The game knows if you've already had something earlier in the game demo, so like you don't have to like go through another little cutscene again. It explains what the item is to you via like a sub screen, but it's never too in your face. It's really really cool and different, and it feels open world. It really feels like you could kind of do anything in this world.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be really weird to compare this game to what I'm about to do, but hear me out. I feel like this game is similar to Chibi Robo. Now, before before you think I'm going crazy, one of the things I love about Chibi Robo and just like Skips games in general is that there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do, but you really don't have to do them necessarily in any order. You just have this feeling of like, I'm going to explore what's up on the cabinet. I'm going to go see what's over there. What's in the living room? What's in this? So in a little bit of a way, I really feel like this is going to capture why I love those Chibi Robo and all those games, but with Zelda, because it has that same feeling of like, you know what? Just go do stuff. Go explore. Go find out what's up in that cave or like what's in the river or whatever. So, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of the feeling and the joy that I get from playing one of Skip's games.
I will say one of the interesting things about this, and I don't know if you've played Xenoblade, but I felt like I was playing Xenoblade X for a little bit through a lot of the game, because that game world is so massive, and you could do so much and go pretty much anywhere you look. And it's also been confirmed since E3 that Monolith Soft is working on this game alongside Nintendo, and you could really tell. I mean, you could tell. There's these big, like, breathtaking vistas and locations, and mixed in with, like, all the traditional Zelda enemies and Zelda locations, it's just, like, it's a sight to behold, man.
And that's funny, too, because as I'm sure many people know, I never really liked Xenoblade, but I always felt like with Xenoblade X, from the moment I saw it, I was like, oh my god, I'd love to just walk around and run around in these worlds, but the gameplay is just really not for me because it's too complex. But with Zelda, it's like I get that great feeling of like, oh man, I get to explore these huge areas, and it's with Zelda gameplay, so this is just going to be amazing. Like, I'm so darn excited to just spend hours messing around in this game. How often did you find yourself just kind of wandering and messing around? Like, did you ever feel like you had to do something, or were you just constantly like being distracted and just having fun playing around?
So I was just having fun playing around because I figured we'd be playing it later on during a media appointment as well. But really, I spent the first part of my demo rushing to get as far as I could on the other side of the map, because I'd sort of seen some of the stuff via the Treehouse Live on the first day, and I didn't play Zelda my first day of the show. I specifically waited to play Zelda for Wednesday. I basically spaced out Wednesday to play Zelda, and then Thursday we knew we were having our media appointment, so if I wanted to play it again, I could play it then. And really, I watched all the Treehouse footage. I saw some of the basic things that you could do in the demo, so I wanted to do something different. So you could actually see this in my my vlog of the show. I went to this little side area where you could like burn down this one tower with a bokoblin on top of it by burning the grass around it, and then I accidentally died by jumping into like a frozen river, but since I had reached the checkpoint, I actually went further than the frozen river, and I got into like a little ice mini dungeon where you had to like take out a bridge, and that was really cool. And my demo girl said that no one else actually got to that point in the whole time she was watching, and that I thought was pretty cool, that like I had gotten to an area that nobody else had reached yet, and I'm sure I was like not the only one who did that throughout the course of the show, but I'm also sure that there were plenty of other things in the demo that I didn't even get a chance to see, despite playing it for like a good solid hour. So
I don't know if you looked at the map. I'm sure you probably did. In the Treehouse Live stuff, they showed the map and they showed like the location that they were showing off at E3. And they zoomed out, and oh my god, like I thought the demo at E3 was massive. It's like a tiny little thumbnail compared to like everything else. Like this game is beyond massive in scale.
Yeah, so the E3 demo, to put this in perspective, the entire E3 demo is 2% of the game world. 2%.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And you couldn't ride Epona in the demo, right?
No, you couldn't ride Epona.
Yeah,
You could surf on your shield, though, which was pretty cool.
You could what?
You could surf on your shield.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Like, does it only work on the snow, or can you do it anywhere?
You could do it on the snow, and you could do it on the hills, and you could basically do this, like, kickflip and slide down on your shield, and then if you jump, by the way, Link has a dedicated jump button this time. That feels really different. But if you jump off a cliff and, like, aim your bow and arrow at someone, you go into, like, this slow-motion bullet time kind of thing, where you could, like, shoot arrows at people and make them explode. It's just, man, it's such a beautiful game. I genuinely, during my live reaction, I freaked out because I heard the voice acting, and I was like, oh my god, we're getting voice acting for the first time in a Zelda game. But upon rewatching the trailer after like I got back from E3, that music is just so beautiful. I love the music track. I love the orchestrated music. I love the little piano music. I love the ambiance of like the demo where it's basically just these like weird like sounds like birds chirping and like cicadas buzzing and stuff, and it doesn't really feel like music. But then when you go into like a little shrine area or you get into a battle, like the music kind of swells up. It's just like it feels like a really natural Zelda game, like a Zelda game for Boy Scouts, basically. Like, where you're just, like, free reign in a giant open environment, do whatever you want to do. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet, but I can already tell this is going to be one of my favorite Zelda games ever. This might actually be able to go toe-to-toe with Wind Waker for me in how much I'm going to absolutely love it, because I just want to wander around and discover funny little things, and just it seems like they have put so much attention. Can we talk for a second about how gorgeous the grass is? I'm obsessed with the grass.
It's just blowing in the wind, man, yeah.
It looks so good. And you can cut them, too.
Yeah, you can cut them. I love also the name. I love the name Breath of the Wild. Like, it's taken me a while to get used to it, because I used to call it Breath of the Wind. But, no, Breath of the Wild, I think, is a beautiful name for the game. And one other thing that's sort of a minor thing, and you obviously wouldn't care about it, because I know you hate anime, but as a giant Studio Ghibli fan, basically when I saw the logo in the Japanese trailer and it used the very classic 80s on Desetsu no Zelda logo, and it's like the big kanji katakana letters, and then you also see underneath it in the little letters Breath of the Wild, and you hear the piano music, it really feels like a Studio Ghibli Zelda game, which I think is a massive compliment to the game world they've created. So
even though obviously I'm not the biggest fan of anime, I will say I love the art style in this game, and for me, in a way, yeah, I can see the resemblance between like Studio Ghibli, whatever. But I actually don't hate those movies. Like, that's a style of anime that I can get behind, and also Studio Ghibli is really inspired by early Disney animation.
Yes, yeah.
So to me, this also has a little bit of that early classic Disney animation vibe to it as well.
I could agree with that.
So I absolutely love the art style. It looks great. I love the bokoblins, the enemies. They remind me of if one of those Boglin toys from the 80s had sex with a gremlin from the Gremlins. Like, compare those two images on Google image search, and I promise you'll be like, oh my god, that's what happened here.
Yeah, I love the enemy designs. I love even, like, the Guardians and the rock boss little thing and all the Stalfos. Like, everything feels unique, and it feels like interesting, and all the bosses that you could battle like on the field, some of them are crazy powerful. Like the Guardians had 500 HP. You could not kill one of those Guardians during the demo unless you like sprinted to one and then like spent the entire demo fighting it. But there were so many ways to like attack it. Like I saw in one of the Treehouse Live videos, I didn't do this myself, but I saw this in a Treehouse Live video. You could basically pick up a sword that you've dropped using your magnet and then like chuck it at the enemy using like magnet power, which I think is so cool and unique and different and feels unlike anything you've done in a Zelda game before. And yeah, there's wildlife everywhere. There's little squirrels running around. You could use the Wolf Link amiibo to have like a wolf partner to help you hunt. You could cook. Like we didn't even talk about cooking yet. Like you could take mushrooms and different types of meat and then create like kebabs that will give you more stamina so you could climb to higher paths. I love this game already.
So yeah, I have some questions about that. Is there like a lot of stuff? Is it basically like you combine two things? Can you combine more than two things and it creates something?
So I haven't tried a bunch of recipes, but I know you can combine like the steak and the mushrooms to create something. You can combine multiple mushrooms to create like a mushroom skewer. There's lots of different recipes, and I'm sure there are other recipes that I didn't find, but I saw there was like a skewer, there was like a seared steak, there was like a meat and mushroom combo thing. There was a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah.
And does it do stuff that's actually interesting? Like, is it worth doing?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because like, here's a perfect example: is if you have one of the mushroom skewers, it'll refill your stamina. And you'd think, okay, refilling your stamina, what's the big deal about that? Well, everything runs on stamina in this game, basically. So if you want to sprint, if you want to climb, that uses stamina. And if you see there's like a giant cliff that you want to climb, but you don't really have the stamina to climb all the way up, you could climb up the cliff, and then midway through, while you're low on stamina, while you're still holding on to the cliff, you could eat your mushroom skewer, climb even farther, and then find like a secret hidden area. So yeah.
Nice. So what if you run out of stamina when you're climbing up a big mountain?
You fall and then you die.
Oh my god. I thought you could just stop for a while and it would refill and then you keep climbing.
So you could slide down. There was one area in particular where the majority of people died in the demo that I noticed, which was in the second demo when you climbed to the top of the Resurrection Tower. You would have to climb down the tower, and a lot of people were getting like impatient, and so they just dropped from the tower and immediately died. But if you climb down the tower and then like let go and then push into the tower, you sort of do this little like slide technique where you could slide down the mountain and then climb up and climb down again. So yeah, there's lots of other climbing techniques, but again, I didn't really get that much time to spend on like observing all the different things you could do through climbing. But it does kind of feel like a mix of Skyrim and Wind Waker and Uncharted and all these other really good games sort of put together in one game. So, yeah.
So, this game's just going to be so amazing. So I will share one concern I have with this.
Sure. Maybe I will be able to alleviate it for you.
Okay, well, I hope so. I am so into the open world stuff. I'm okay with the shrines, but I will like the shrines a lot more if they are just a bonus little sort of challenge mode type of a thing. What I haven't seen, and what nobody has seen, are actual dungeons that have an amazing theme that really feel like a big dungeon. Are those going to be in this game?
Yes. So they said that there are main dungeons in the game, big regular theme dungeons that will be in this game, and that the shrines are sort of seen as like mini dungeons, and that you could expect like tons of these shrines around the different areas of the game. And again, to put this in perspective, the demo was 2% of the overall game world, and that little demo area itself had, to my knowledge, at least 2 mini dungeons, because I went to 2. There was the little bridge mini dungeon shrine and the little magnet mini dungeon shrine, and there may well have been another one hidden in there as well that I just didn't find because the world was so massive.
There was one where you had to guide a giant boulder.
So that wasn't a shrine. That was just like on the world. You're like climbing up a hill and you have to push the boulder down the hill to kill a couple bokoblins. Yeah, that wasn't even like...
Oh, no, this wasn't a shrine, though. There was a shrine that was all about like trying to get a boulder to the end of the
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So that's good. Like, have they mentioned how many dungeons?
I can't imagine it'll be any less than 4. I can't, like...
Okay.
4 main dungeons, I'm sure, will be, like, the minimum. Considering Majora's Mask had the shortest amount of dungeons in the series, and Majora's Mask had 4 big, really interesting dungeons, I could imagine this game probably having 4 at least. But I think 4 giant dungeons and like 100 mini dungeons and the whole open world to explore would be plenty for me. But then again, that's not even including what I'm assuming is going to be like Calamity Ganon's castle and Hyrule Castle and, Death Mountain. I'm sure there's other areas that we don't know about yet. Also, there's like the little Skyloft looking area that was seen in the Treehouse Live thing, and I saw it while I was playing in my demo. I like sort of zoomed in and tried to look over at it. It appears that Skyloft, or like a Twilight Princess Castle in the Sky type area, is sort of like above the demo area that we saw. So yeah, that might be another main shrine dungeon as well. Yeah.
Oh. Do the shrines have like many different themes? Because every shrine that I've seen is this sort of bluish gray dimly lit shrine. Or do they all have that same theme?
You've only seen one then.
Well, I think I've seen 2.
So the boulder one, the bridge boulder one or whatever, looked different than the mini shrine with the magnet stuff. But the other shrine you're thinking of is the shrine you wake up in the beginning of the game. And that is also like blue and black and looks kind of like ancient future looking. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, first, the shrines seemed not as interesting to look at to me for some reason. They just seemed like they were very, like, blocky. Like, everything was...
I will say that the magnet shrine in particular was incredible to look at. Like the...
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I just didn't see the right stuff.
Yeah. The detective mode, Batman Arkham Asylum type detective mode, magnet shrine, where you basically like lift up these giant like magnetic like blocks to like sort of solve a puzzle. That whole shrine looked really cool because it was like sort of dimly lit and dark and blue, but then whenever you activate your magnet thing, it shoots off this like red pulse. And so there were these cool lighting effects where like this red and the blue would be shining off of the shrine walls, and you'd be like moving the boulders, and there were like little mini guardian enemies shooting laser beams at you. It looked really different, and sort of reminded me of the Tower of the Gods from Wind Waker.
Okay. Well, that's literally my only concern with the game. I want there to be a good amount of actual dungeons, and I don't want them to just say, well, we've got 100 mini dungeons, so it doesn't really matter. Like, I want those big dungeons.
During the Treehouse Live event, and also on the show floor when I asked one of the reps, that there are for sure regular dungeons in the game as well.
Okay. Really, isn't it weird how, like, they did show off a lot, but at the same time, they didn't show off a lot. Like, we didn't see any dungeons. We saw, like, no characters to talk to except for the one old man, who, by the way, a lot of people are speculating is actually the King of Hyrule from Wind Waker.
I saw some people saying that. A lot of people are speculating the voice in the trailer is Zelda as well. So
yeah, I think I can get behind that. What do you think of those two things? I believe both of them, to be honest with you.
I don't want to get too much into timeline theory type stuff because I sort of want to research it and do my own video later on. But I think people are on the right track in terms of looking at like the King of Red Lions, especially considering the fact that Koroks from the Wind Waker timeline are in this game. But one thing that I think is really interesting and maybe might give a hint to where this is going to land on a certain timeline, I really like the convergence theory. And I don't know if you've heard about this already, but it's the theory that this game is sort of the convergence of the three split timelines, like in the far future, where there's elements of Wind Waker's universe, there's elements of Twilight Princess's universe with Wolf Link, and then like there's elements of the other like original Zelda universe as well, the Fallen Hero timeline, the Link to the Past timeline, where we have like this big open Hyrule that you can explore. So it's got elements of all three of the timelines, and I really like the idea that like all of the timelines met at some point in the far future, and that the Link that gets reborn is actually the Link from the original Zelda game, or maybe from the Link from Adventure of Link, Zelda 2, which I think would be really cool.
Okay, well, stay tuned to Roger's video where he talks more about it.
Yeah, that'll be. I actually want to do like a lot of research on that, so there probably won't be any time soon, but I do plan on doing that video.
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. This has like been like about a 25-minute discussion, so we're gonna look at this first part as being us just talking about Zelda, because obviously there's a lot to talk about there. We're not done yet. We're gonna talk about a few more things, and then there's gonna be a part 2 where we go over like Mario Party, Paper Mario, some of the RPG stuff, and so on. So I'm just telling you this now and them, so that you know what I should say. But as far as Zelda goes, like, what are some things you are hoping to see in the final version, having played the demo?
So what was interesting, and this had never happened before at any E3 I've ever attended with Nintendo, is Nintendo specifically asked for feedback, and we wrote down these like little survey question things in order to get our shirts and get our coins. And they were genuinely interested in like what we thought of this game, and I find that very interesting. Like they really want to know fan feedback, and I also find that kind of hopeful as well, because it's very clear to me that like they care about what the fans want. This time around, I think like they kind of just had one thing in mind for Skyward Sword and like ran to their original vision. And I love Skyward Sword, and I know you love Skyward Sword as well, but there were a lot of people who really did not like that game, and I feel like maybe that was trying to appeal to those people. But one thing that I mentioned that I really wanted to see on top of what you said, which is I really want more like big regular dungeons as well. And this is a really random funny thing that I want to see come back. I really want to see the return of the spinner from Twilight Princess. I loved that item. I feel like it would be really fun to traverse this world with the spinner. And if the spinner was like a key item, I wouldn't have to worry about my shield breaking by like surfing on the back of my shield. So I think having the spinner come back in this world in particular would be really, really cool.
Oh God, I just realized so many people might have said make Link a girl in their...
Oh, a lot of people might have. Yeah.
That's where do you stand on that, Roger?
Dude, who cares, man? It's like, who cares? I honestly, I don't care. I'm happy Link is a boy because he's always been a boy. But I mean, it wouldn't like ruin my world if Link was a girl. Like, who cares? I did think their excuse as to why Link is a boy this time around was kind of like, you maybe shouldn't have just answered the question at all, because it seemed kind of lame. Where it was like, oh, well, it would upset the balance if it was like a girl with courage and a girl with wisdom and then Ganon with power. It was like, yeah, but there's 2 guys and 1 girl now, so regardless, it's never going to be even. So that didn't really make much sense to me, but honestly, I don't really care. I'm happy Link is a boy personally, because I think it makes more sense in the overall timeline. But, I mean, if they ever wanted to eventually make a Zelda game with the main character being a girl, I'd be all for it. But I also kind of stand with what Onuma said, which is that if they were going to make a standalone Zelda game with a female main character, why wouldn't they just use Zelda? I mean, they already have a great, cool, powerful, interesting female character to use. They could just use Zelda as the main character and then maybe make Link the prince or something like that. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think they need to make Link a boy. That's about as weird as saying they want to make Mario a girl, you know? So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Miyamoto even mentioned that he always kind of wanted to make Link a little androgynous, but he's always, like, been a boy character in his mind.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that was the inevitable question we had to go over, so we're done with that. Let's get back to having fun talking about Zelda.
Woo!
Any final thoughts?
I love it. I think it's going to be probably one of the best Zelda games of all time. And I will say this, and I mentioned this to the demo people as well. My one complaint, something I noticed while playing the demo, and it's not really a complaint because the game is so massive and it's like an early build, I noticed frame rate issues.
Oh, really?
I noticed frame rate issues playing the game, and I feel like that's going to be a reason alone to buy the NX version.
By the NX, yeah.
And you and I both stand firmly in the NX camp. We're going to get the NX version of the game. We know this already. I think they already confirmed it's going to launch with NX, right? So I'm going to get the NX version regardless, unless the Wii U version comes out like months earlier. Then I'm not going to be able to wait. I'm just going to have to buy the Wii U version and then also get the NX version because this game is interesting enough. But I did notice some frame rate drops where sometimes it went like below sub 30 even. Which, you know, isn't really good, but considering the game is so massive and it's on an underpowered hardware like Wii U compared to something like NX, I'm not really holding it against the game, you know?
Mm-hmm. Does it run at 60 frames per second? Right. I think it runs at 30.
I think it runs at 30, and it even dropped below that at some points in the demo. Like, at one point when I blew up a Bokoblin camp, and it slowed down, like, pretty immensely, so.
Oh, Jesus. So this is my prediction with that. Both versions are going to be identical games, right? The difference, though, is going to be in performance. The NX version will potentially run at 60 frames per second. I think it could potentially also be 1080p. And I think you're not going to see those frame rate dips as much in the NX version, if at all.
Well, one thing that Aonuma confirmed in one of the Treehouse Live segments, and he mentioned this on the show floor, is that the game is going to be visually different on the NX. Now, I don't know if that means that, like, so I don't think it means like a full different art style, which is how a lot of people took that quote. What I think that means is that the visual fidelity of the game is going to be like exponentially better on the NX. Like, I don't think there'll be like any real slowdown. I think the game is going to look even prettier. All the textures are going to be super clear. There's not going to be any pop-in. That's what I think he meant.
That's another thing that it didn't annoy me, but it just 1% disappointed me. I did notice, like, whenever they would take the sailcloth or whatever they call it now, the paraglider or whatever, and jump off a big cliff, you would see stuff loading in front of you, like it just popped in. And I think they could fix that by actually making it, like, gracefully fade in instead of just, oh, all of a sudden there's a rock there. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the difference. I think the NX version is just going to be technically more competent. You're not going to have as many of those pop-ins. It's going to run way more smoothly, and it's going to be a better resolution. And for me, that's definitely a reason to go with the NX version.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, so we're not arguing that.
I think it's also going to launch a little earlier on NX. I'm going to put that out there, maybe like 2 weeks earlier on NX. Right. Roger, thank you so much for talking about this new darn Zelda game with me.
You're welcome. I mean, it was my pleasure. I got to play it, so.
Yeah, I guess that's going to wrap it up. You want to let everybody know where they can follow you and ask you a million questions about the Zelda demo?
Sure, you can follow me, RogersBase, everywhere, on Twitter, on Miiverse, on Instagram, on Twitch, on YouTube, on everything. Yeah, RogersBase.
Nice. Stay tuned. In like a day or so, we're going to be chatting about more things E3 and Nintendo. So yeah, that'll be fun as well.
So, Disney.
Thank you so much for listening.
Da 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 da.